Hey everyone, welcome back to another sketchbook tour. I am very excited to share the sketchbook with you since I wanted to share this almost already a few weeks ago, but I really wanted to think how I communicate the things I've learned. To give you a little bit of context, for the people who are new to my channel, I'm a professional concept artist. I worked in games over the last 5 years. I just left my game company a few months ago and I am basically a full-time teacher now, and I teach people in a one-on-one mentorship session, but I also do educational content. And since I'm doing that, since I left my company, I do not work 40 hours plus a week anymore. I basically have more time for myself, for my own personal development as artist. So I started to think about how can I evolve, because when you work in a game studio as a concept artist, you are basically forced into a position, into certain habits. All your creative energy is basically staying at your job because you spend most of the time your day there, and when you come home you're so empty and you just need a break to refill for the next day. So it's kind of tricky to have creative habits and to basically go outside of these boundaries. Last year when I was in Portugal at the THU event, I bought this sketchbook here. You can also see this. This is the sketchbook edition 2015. They always have these nice sketchbooks. They sell there very cheap also, I think like 10 or 15 bucks. I really like them for the paper, but also they have really nice covers. I have tons of sketchbooks I already filled in my life, and most of them are black. They have these black covers. So they are basically just like this, but it's very hard for me to dissect when did I make the sketchbook, and also when I put them on my shelf, they're all black. But here it is very nice because you can basically put this in your bookshelf and then it looks like a book with a nice cover. This is something I personally really like. So last year in September when I went to THU, I met the whole Super Annie crew for the first time. So Dong-ho, Yoojin, Kim Young-ji, rest in peace. I met Katsuya Terada for the first time, and I saw all these guys drawing with ink from their imagination. This is something which always fascinates me when someone can draw really from imagination, because since I started my art journey in 2014, I've learned to copy. I've learned you need to copy these old masters, you have to copy these professional artists, you have to copy to become better. And I think copying is not a bad habit of getting better. It's definitely a quick habit. The problematic thing I see over the last few years also, and also in me teaching this other people, is that we lose a little bit the confidence in our own creative ability to be creative and to draw from imagination. I wanted to challenge myself with this sketchbook. There are a few rules I wanted to make important here. Rule number 1, ink only. Cannot erase, you have to pre-think. Rule number 1 was ink only. Rule number 2, and this was a very important one, highly focusing on drawing from imagination. This sketchbook here will probably be a sketchbook I'm the least confident to share with you all, because there's so many drawings I consider not good drawings, even though that's kind of subjective sometimes. I still consider them not as properly good professional drawings. Since I'm a professional, I'm a working professional, I still want to share it with you. Rule number 3 was I wanted to surprise myself every page. When I did all my other sketchbooks and I looked through my other sketchbooks, I felt a little bit that I was drawing the same all the time. That has to do, I think, a lot with being confident or being in your comfort zone. So I wanted to surprise myself every page. And what I mean by this, I wanted to draw something different almost every other page. All right, are you ready? Let's go. First page. I was looking at a lot of different areas where people would use ink, so I wanted to learn. So I started to do basically these little drawings like they would do in animation, because I was very fascinated about how efficient they have to be in their drawing to be basically very fast in a production. And this is also something I have learned very, very quick. The more I did it, the more comfortable I became, and the more less and the more I trust my abilities of drawing with that. I was working on it in October, November, December, and half of January. So 3.5 months. But I did not only drew this, I also almost finished this big one here, and I also finished this small one here. These are also ink-only sketchbooks. This one was a sketchbook which I basically only choose to draw when I was going outside and just basically draw everywhere these kind of like moments. I will also make a separate sketchbook video about these. So if you folks want to see more sketchbook videos, let me know in the comments which one you want to see first, the small one or the big one. The big one has a lot of watercolor paintings in there also. I've learned very quick that there's a lot of efficiency going on when I draw with ink. Yeah, and I started to draw everything everywhere only with ink pen. So I always had a pen with me, and everywhere where I could see that I basically have a good pen which with ink, I bought it. And I tried it out, and you will see that I started also at some point to add a lot of color. I found these Muji colors, and I will put the link into the description from all the mediums I was using. So this made it also much more exciting, because in the beginning I was only drawing in black ink. And everywhere I go, I remember these were like people in the train. I went to my parents with the train, and I was like, oh, there was like an old couple, and he was like constantly moving his leg, like he had to go to the toilet, and I was just imagining what they think. Like she was cuddling with him, and he was like, he needs to go to the toilet, so I wrote, I need to take a piss, and she was like, I love to spend time with him, you know, but they were not talking. So I don't know, it just my weird imagination going out there. And yeah, these are all drawings from imagination, analyzing animation drawings and stuff, trying to simplify. And also, of course, this is important if you have a sketchbook. I always do something like this, like if you find it, take a look, and then please contact me and send me my sketchbook, because yeah, you never know when you lose your sketchbook. So I was sitting with my girlfriend in a coffee store. I had a very nice coffee, and I think she had some cake, and they had these open bakery in the background. There was a guy basically working on the cake, and you could see that, and he had all these great machines. But unfortunately, every time I go somewhere, I lose myself too much, and then I spend too much time. And I also don't want to like sit there forever, because it's also annoying for my girlfriend if she want to leave after a while. And I would technically could sit there for an hour to draw, but and then I also started to do that everywhere. I went to Shizu Burger. It's a place it's a really nice Korean American fusion kitchen we have here in Berlin. Yeah, and then I started to do all these pages from imagination, right? Imagining people. So when you go somewhere and you see someone doing something funny, when you go somewhere and you see a certain scene which kind of like fascinates you and stays in your brain, try to come home and draw it. That really makes it's a big challenge for your imagination, but not only that, you also start to be more sensitive. And you start to observe more, and I think the observational point is really important. Here I came out of the doctor's office where I went, and there were these bikes. I forgot what's the name for these. It's these smaller ones, and I was actually standing in front of the bike. So I drew this one standing on the street, and people. It's so funny Germans. They come by looking at me like I would be someone working from the government, like, because there were a bunch of these standing, like if I would write down their license plate that they parked wrong. But actually I was just drawing it, and then I was basically also dissecting all the parts so I could draw them from imagination later. Yeah, and then I started also like doing always anatomy, always try to draw anatomy from imagination. And I want to say also, this is very important for you. If you want to become a character artist, if you want to become an illustrator, if you do any figurative work, if you want to work in comics, it is okay if you learn these methods of Bern Hogarth, if you try to use the Loomis method, if you learn all these principles by these other artists. This is great, no doubt about it. But nevertheless, you need to also learn to be you, okay? You need to find out, what do you like, you as a person. Do you like S-curve, more strongly S-curve figures? Do you like figures which are more stylized with more straight lines? Is it something in between? Is it a certain proportion? And I have a little question for you. Like we had this on stream last week. If you would draw someone sexy, and it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, how would you draw this person? You personally. What would you think is sexy? Or what do you think is attractive? What do you find attractive? And then how would you communicate that? And this is not only for this is for everything. You can change this question in any case. Like, what type of design do you like? Such fundamental question, because you need to figure out what type of shapes do you like? Do you like certain triangle shapes? Do you like more blocky shapes? Because you will find and reflect on your own artistic inner self. And I believe we do not train this enough. Now you want to challenge yourself. All these days, all these years, we forget to challenge our own imagination. We practice composition, story, anatomy, we practice design, but we completely forgot the creative imagination part. Actually, the most fun part of being an artist is, if you ask me, and it's my personal opinion, I don't know how you think about it, please let me know in the comments, but I believe imaginative, creative is the best part of being an artist. So yeah, this is the table where I'm sitting here right now. It's also the table, again, trying this ballpoint, but it was smearing a lot, but basically trying to draw every day. Yeah, and then inventing poses is really not easy, because you have to think about gesture, but you also have to figure out, okay, where's an overlap, right? How's the anatomy sitting? How's the pose? So you have to really pre-think when you do these ink stuff. You want to be creative, right? So like I was sitting here on my couch in the evening, I was like, how would an old cat with a long beard smoking a long cigarette sitting with this like more Japanese type of clothing look? And I just did this little doodle in here, and I really liked it, to be honest. And it just showed me that my imagination is going in the right direction. I'm starting to think more about it. And then I drew her, and then I imagine her like, okay, how about she would eat noodles, but she couldn't use her hands. And then I imagine like her eating noodles without hands, and now it looks like she's puking noodles, but it's kind of funny. This drawing really took me a little bit because I wanted to think about a moment, and the moment was actually, I was hiking with my father in Spain on a mountain, and it was the 3rd or 4th day. We were walking on the mountain and we had a great view. We ate some lunch on the mountain on the top. It was like 1,300 meters or something. And then we were eating. I took my sketchbook, I did a little of drawing there, and then we went to go back to the car. And I was walking in front, and then after a while I turned around and my father wasn't there anymore. I'm like, hey, where's my dad? And then I just saw him crawling up the pathway besides of the mountain, and I'm like, what is he doing? And then he basically, and I didn't really get it because he was so fast, he basically fell off the pathway, and then he hit his head on the rock, and he like had these things everywhere, and then he was bleeding, but he was laughing at the same time. So I took a video of him and sent it to my mother, and my mother was devastated. She was so angry with me that I did not decide to basically help him, but basically took a video of the trip, and she was so angry with me, so pissed, but it was really, really funny. Yeah, and I basically tried to think about this scene when this happens. And more stuff, more thinking about people, more thinking about personality, even though anatomy is messed up, head is a little bit, has a shape. I also tried on purpose to sometimes make the heads a bit bigger, to play a bit more with the lens and create some sort of like foreshortening where the head is technically closer to the camera, but it's really not easy. Imagining her, she being that badass chick. I saw a bodybuilder who was tattooed like his neck up, and I came home and I tried to remember him. Looking at drawings from animation and thinking about the simplicity approach, thinking about what I was talking about, right? To what do I like? Do I like certain eyes bigger, ratio smaller? Thinking about this fisheye lens, Kim Young-ji is also always using. Problematic aspect of drawing from imagination is actually not the imaginative part. I think it is that everything comes together. You have to think about perspective, anatomy, composition, story, positioning, but also the imaginative part, right, is all there. So you have to bring everything together. And this everything together part is really tough. So if you have trouble with these type of things, I would recommend break it down, okay? So start with drawing only with the imaginative part, and then maybe do only drawing the figure part, and then do it as long as you need to be comfortable in drawing these. More stuff, more drawing from imagination. I think that was inspired by an image I was seeing, but I liked how I drew the clothing here, just following the strokes, and I started to learn more of the medium, you know, like you see me doing different rendering styles in here, and you will see this will also change in the sketchbook. One of my favorite coffee places here in Berlin is called Fancy, and they have really nice coffee. And yeah, I was sitting there, but I couldn't finish the drawing because it took me really long to draw, actually, with the bag and everything, and then also drawing the written stuff on the table, vice versa. So yeah, but it was cool. And this was in front of the cafe. So I went out and I drew a bit more, drew this girl sitting there, drew a car far away back, just trying to have a good day. And I really like these days where it's like the tempo of the day is very slow and I can basically just get in my zone. And at some point, I don't know how's it for you, but for me, if I draw like 1 or 2 hours, I get really into the zone, I get really chill, and I can just like zone out completely. Where was I? I was on, when I went into the strip club. No, I'm just joking. I was actually sitting on my couch and I went through TikTok. Yeah, and of course TikTok is also giving you that. And there was this twerking class, and they had really cool poses actually. So I was just drawing those. And then I saw that the pen I was using was basically inking through. So it gave me the opportunity to draw this again and trying to correct my mistakes a little bit. So I did that. That was actually kind of fun. Around Christmas, I started to buy Mobius books, and I'm a huge Mobius fan for years already, but I never had really time to figure out why do I like it so much. And I bought his books, and these books have so much great stories. Let me get one of these. So I bought, for example, this one here. I was really fascinated by these books here, not only about the efficiency of the ink drawing, but also the storytelling and the way of doing short stories. So I can highly recommend these books to you if you're interested in that, if you're interested also in fantastical storytelling. I found these on Amazon. I can also put a link into the description. Bought a bunch of these books, and they really inspired me, even if it's like a small drawing of a figure. It shows like, okay, well, you can draw basically a figure that big, right? That's just so cool. Drew this guy when we went for a walk, saw this guy with a kinderwagen, and then I drew him again from imagination when I came home. Automatic drawings here, so when I try to get into the zone and try to basically get into the creative stage, sometimes I need to relax my mind when I have a lot of thoughts in my mind at that moment, and I do these little doodles, and sometimes I also see little designs in them, and later in the sketchbook you will also see some of these I made some designs out of these, and they're basically just like drawings without thinking. And if you want to try this, I recommend my Draw With Me session where we do automatic drawings. There's like, I think it's 30 to 40 minutes of automatic drawing. I will put it here in the top. I'll put it here in the top of the video. Yeah, we were eating somewhere, and there was this couple, and the like teenager couple, and it looked like they had their first date, and it was kind of funny because they were like super shy, but when the food came, they were like eating, I don't know, like if they hadn't had food for weeks. Yeah, definitely Mobius inspired, simplicity wise, but from imagination. So I saw a drawing which was the way, for example, he draw the hair here. I really liked that, so I just replicated it and tried to use it for my own style. also from imagination basically, and then just try to keep this information in my head. He also played a little bit with a Copic marker, so I drew Copic first and then I inked it. I was thinking about this about this story that these travelers would go through space, and there was sitting this giant person on a planet reading a book about space. But I didn't continue with the thought. I don't know. It was super random actually. Oh yeah, I had a not so good day, and I wanted to draw my mood to reflect that, and I basically drew this dude here, and I wanted to draw someone who's very like radical in a way, so I gave him a bald head and yeah, the middle finger. It basically says more stuff like this, basically playing with poses, thinking about gesture before I do certain things. Yeah, just practice. Also, sometimes it's good going back to the basics, thinking about these box drawings or how you would put someone in a box. And I want to emphasize also that if these kind of methods you learn from someone else, if they work for someone else, that's okay, but they don't need to work for you. And that's also okay. So just try to see what you can take out of these things, right? But you need to, again, find you. You have to find your own voice, and you have to find your own artistic ability to learn and express yourself. Expressing yourself is really hard because we have so many great artists and we see so much great art, and it's so easy to fall into the trap of trying to replicate that. But we don't want to replicate that. We want to find our own way. And I feel like, to be honest, I filled so many sketchbooks over the last years, but this is one of the sketchbooks I learned the most about myself, I wanted to say. Lady sitting there casting spells and basically casting a spell to casting a spell. So basically casting a hand coming out of her belly with a book where magic spells are in there, and then she's casting a spell, and then she has other books like How to Draw from Imagination and The Figure. Yeah, I think I had one of my last meetings at my old job in the game company, and I didn't have to listen so much anymore because it was my last meeting. So I was basically just drawing there. Yeah, a guy with golf club, because I started last year. I started to play golf with my buddies, with two of my friends, more regular. So I'm also more into practicing golf and watching a little bit of golf sport, and yeah. And I think that is just the reason why I drew that. Oh, I was actually traveling when I drew these. I did a trip after I quit my job to my family. So my brother lives in the south of Germany. My sister lives in France. So I made a tour to my brother, and then from my brother to my sister. Again, seeing somewhere, like I didn't have actually time to draw these people. So I just looked at them and tried to burn it into my head. And when I draw it again, I don't care if it's a super accurate drawing. It's just about the essence of it, right? So there was this girl, like she had this huge bag sitting there, and she had like chains. She looked a little bit like a rapper, and then she had this cigarette, and she smoked it like it would be a blunt or something. Yeah, and then me sitting there, and there was this girl. I think she was like maybe 20 or 21. She was so tired and she looked like she had sleepless nights, so I could imagine it was her kid. But I couldn't finish the drawing because I had to go the moment. I think this one we drew on live stream, so on our weekly live stream here. Just stuff from imagination. So if you want to join our live streams, we have a live stream every Wednesday. It's on Twitch. You just type in my name, Janosch Art Zone, and then you will find my Twitch channel. But yeah, we just did these drawings from imagination, and I always love it to talk to people and draw at the same time, and I can just zone out and to draw stuff, weird stuff. This was on the train. When I was on a train to France. Yeah, I was sitting there drawing, and there was this lady staring at me. I swear, she was staring at me, and she was always turning around. I just wanted to draw her from the back, but she was constantly basically turning around and was so freaking annoying, to be honest. And then I just started to draw her like this sideways, and I started to draw this other lady, changed the pen, and then I stopped the drawing because it was just so annoying. Yeah, and here I was in France actually. So my sister started with landscape architecture. And I really love it that I have a very creative family. My mom is a painter, my brother is a compositor in movies. My sister started now with landscape architecture. My brother-in-law, he does furniture. So we have a lot of creative people in the family, and I had the opportunity to teach my sister perspective. And as you folks know, I'm a very passionate teacher. So I just grabbed a sketchbook and started to explain her basic perspective of picture plane. This is a replicate of what she drew, and I basically explained her how a foreground, midground, background works, how dark to light works in shading, how perspective, a vanishing point works. Here I had an idea for a sci-fi comic which plays in the 90s because I was watching The Fifth Element. Like, ideas okay, and they can stay here. Maybe I come back later to that. Here I basically try to draw the same girl. I saw a photo of a girl from Instagram. I sometimes have her in my feed. I drew her in different positions, and then I basically try to turn her head. And yeah, it's fun also thinking about different shapes and different type of things. This is by my niece, Camille, and she's 5. And she, like, when I went there, like, to my sister, my sister has 4 kids. When they see me drawing, they jump in and they also start to draw, and it's so cute because, yeah, they are also passionate about being creative. And I really like when they draw because it reminds me of that. Even though I wasn't a kid that drew, I never drew as a kid that much as other kids. But nevertheless, she drew me laying in bed, and then she has a very, very bad sense of humor. So yeah, she has these pee-pee caca humor, and then she made me poo out of my own dick. So yeah, she's very creative. This was on the way back already. So when I traveled back to Germany, this was when the train leaves. There was this lady working on the train station. She looked so serious. I drew her, like, the train just drove by. I just saw her in a moment, and I drew her what I saw in that essence. This is actually a drawing by Tonya, one of my mentees. We just had our mentee day a few days ago, where all the mentees met, or not all of the mentees, but actually I think we were like 8 or 7 people actually, and we met in Berlin at the museum, and we had a mentee day, so a full day where we all drew together. We went for food, we went to an art exhibition. It was an amazing day, and we also drew and sketched a lot, and she drew me this in my sketchbook, and I'm very thankful for that. So thanks, Tonya, for the nice drawing. For the mentee day, there's also a video to come. So if you don't want to miss that, feel free to subscribe and put this notification bell on so you get notified when the video is coming. Drew this lady. She sits on the opposite of me. And yeah, she had this very interesting pose of drawing. I was like, well, her neck must hurt very much, but she was constantly in this tilted position. And she read a book. I think it was a French book, and it was about a tower, like a Tower of Babylon, but it has a different topic. I don't know if some of you knows the title. Please write in the comments below. Yeah. Be right back. Yeah, this was on stream. So on live stream, weekly live stream, just doing environments from imagination. Just doing these little frames. As you guys know, I worked as a concept artist and also as an environment artist. Was the last years mostly I did environments at my job. Even though I got hired as a character designer, I did a lot of environments when I worked there. So this is something I can basically do really even easier than doing figures. This is less challenging for me. And I also started to play here really with these Muji pens again. I really love them. I even use a little bit of water with these aqua pens here and just went over the Muji pens to give it a little bit more tone. Yeah, stuff from imagination, just ran stuff. Also here, this one is also from imagination. The same girl, and then trying to think about when she was like turning, you know, like, and this is a great exercise for you. This is also an exercise I give my mentees when they're more advanced with figure drawing. then I let them draw poses which are basically based on a reference, and then they have to turn them. Yeah, this is from the museum, from the Menti Day. These are from the exhibition here. There was an exhibition from Gottfried. I think the exhibition called Shadow by Gottfried. I didn't wrote the full name. And he was a sculptor, and he did very crazy sculpts. So if you have the chance to go into the museum, the National Gallery in Berlin, it's my favorite museum, I would say. And just people in the museum, the statues of Gottfried, and I think this was a study of a painting. This was in the Draw With Me session, the first one. So yeah, again, if you have trouble on starting your day with drawing, just go on my YouTube channel. There's these Draw With Me videos, and yeah, just press play and have some fun and draw with me. Yeah, and this is also here from the Draw With Me session, the same session on the other side, basically draw what I just drew in the session from imagination again, and then writing things down I want to keep in mind, so weight contribution, compression, etc. These are all from imagination again, basically me imagining doing something, trying to draw expressions without really focusing on a nice drawing, just simplification is really the key here. Yeah, and just let my mind go. And it's important that you realize, if you do these drawings from imagination, like you need to take the quality stamp away from you. You know, you need to take away that there can be the potential that you draw something not good, but it gets better and it gets better. And if you imagine a pose and then you do it for the 6th or 7th time, you see little improvements. I was actually quite happy about this one. It felt kind of like what I wanted to express in that moment. Here I was also start to play more with these, with the medium, you know, like I think this was, I don't know what this is actually. I think this is just watercolor paint. I think this is these watercolors here from Schminky, basically. These watercolors, and then these are Muji pens, and yeah, just playing with the different colors here. I wanted to surprise myself, remember, right? I wanted to surprise myself, want to be more creative. And here, surprising myself again, drawing the guy from Evangelion, stuff from imagination, trying different face types again. This was another Draw With Me session here, like we drew faces for one session. This was really fun. Was a very interesting session also, just again playing more with these colors of these pens. This is actually a design I painted also. I can blend it in here. I did few designs based on this one. And yeah, and just here, this is I think one of the Mobius poses he was using. I was thinking about it and I tried to draw it again from imagination. This was also from the museum, just basically little drawings, like talking to one of my mentees also about how to decide what do you do when you do your studies, you know, like how is the value structure, how much are things divided, how's the composition, is it a classical L composition, how are things framed, how is the overlap of things. It's a very interesting process. This is this famous Sargent painting where the guy is on this bench, but I basically drew him without a bench, and I imagined the rest of the pose. And when I did that, I was drawing that standing. I realized, well, I really got better with this imaginative part of imagined parts, you know. Yeah, I was just teaching something. You know, we don't want to draw flat. We're always looking for the 3D effect. Very important here. And then stuff from imagination. Yes, also everything from imagination. Just want to draw some cowboys here. Messed it up a bit, but I don't mind. It's not a problem. Yeah, and then at some point I wanted to also try maybe also doing, like, I never drew comics before, right? And again, I want to surprise myself. I want to push myself and think about how would I frame certain situations I see? Because sometimes I start to observe really a lot of different things, and yeah, imagine basically he looks a little bit like me from from behind. It's like this: I hate people. Kids look like ugly grown-ups, so I had this character. He's basically annoyed by everything, and he's walking through the streets, and everything's kind of like super futuristic. There was like flying vehicles through the city, and he's like, who invented this shit? I'm just having fun. Just stuff from imagination. This artificial body. I really think a lot about futuristic, like how we change as humans in the future. Also our behavior, but also are we more or less driven by emotions or not? Yeah, there is also this theory that emotions are not real, that the brain is only made for survival. And I really think about these kind of like philosophical thinkings in a way. But yeah, still everything is just imagination, just stuff by imagination. Think about a scene, maybe this guy who's never had sex before, and then this lady comes up, and then he's like don't know how to react. Yeah, and just trying different face styles, different simplification, just having fun. I think I posted this in my Instagram story, so if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me under janosch.girasch. That's my Instagram tag, and I was posting this in my story, and someone was writing, "The Mobius is strong in you," and this was actually something I drew after I watched a lot of Mobius books. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And here I actually, after the Mobius book I showed you, I tried to draw. I wanted to think just about the story and what could I do, because I really liked about the Mobius stories that they're short stories which always start very serious, and then they have this very fun plot twist at the end. And I thought about like this like very philosophical guy standing on a spaceship looking at a planet which basically gets shot or terraformed or something, and then he's like thinking, where will all this end? Human desire always pushed the frame of evolution. What do I desire? And he's like partially artificial, with cables and stuff. And then comes this little robot out like bzz, bzz, and he's like, what? I'm thinking here. And then the robot is like, bzz, bzz, dinner is ready. And then he walks into the spaceship, and I imagined this moment where all these little robots come to take off his suit, his space suit, and then he's like, I desire dinner. Yeah, it's you maybe find it not funny, but for me that was a very funny moment. And I did it again the next day. So that's actually a representation of me. So I was walking to buy dinner, so groceries, and I saw this guy coming from the right in the streets, and he walked really like a serial killer. So no sound, very slow but fast pace, if that makes sense. And I imagined in that moment that like how he would start to attack me if he would be a killer or something, or like everyone around me would be a killer, like even the baby with the mother on the playground would try to kill me when I walk by, And then I drew this scene like he's basically trying to pull out a knife, and I see it. I stand here. Here's even the lettuce in my bag. He comes with the knife, and then I'm just smiling, moving a little bit sideways, and then I do this scorpion kick. I actually googled it. It's called scorpion kick, and I basically kick him in the face. And then I'm just walking by and say like, next time, maybe. Yeah, that was actually really fun. I really liked that. But I realized also like, well, I would need to do this much more often to get a feeling also for paneling. There's so much stuff which goes into that. Drawings from automatic drawings, which I started it wasn't a cafe, I think. It was in Berlin in a cafe. I was just doing these, and then I imagine these being like these little riders. They reminded me of Morrowind from Elder Scrolls. They had these striders where you could go from town to town, and I imagine like they were like sleeping, and then they try to lift them up so they can use them to ride them. Yeah, just stuff from imagination. Also, I really like to mix the Muji pens here. Oh yeah, don't ask me why, I started to rewatch One Piece, the Whole Cake chapter on Crunchyroll. Yeah, it's an endeavor, but it's and I thought like, well, how would a Ruffy look if I would draw him from imagination now? Yeah, this is how he turned out. Yeah, it's all from imagination. Just I drew a Viking a few days ago, and then I just tried to think about again what did I drew, and I think it's pretty close to what I drew. I have to cover this a little bit here because this is future content planned for you folks, so I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, and just like a cursed elf kind of dude, and I think yeah, the last 2 pages of my sketchbook are actually notes. That was the sketchbook, this one. So if you want to see the small one, my small travel sketchbook next, tell me in the comments. Or do you want me to show the big one? I think the big one is not completely full. There are like a few pages left. So if you need to tell me in the comments, do you want to see the big one next, or do you want to see the small one next? I will definitely share both of these. It's just a question of when. If this video was helpful today, and if I basically could inspire you or motivate you at least to think about your own approach of fitting a sketchbook, it would make me really happy if you just give the video a thumbs up and if you would subscribe to the channel. Take care everyone. Ciao, ciao.